Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about this Friday. First and foremost, the Democrats are looking to push an ethics bill forward, an ethics bill for the Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court will tell you the latest on that effort. Also, Magic Johnson, one of the great NBA legends, is now officially a co-owner of the Washington Commanders. He's the first black co-owner in the NFL. We'll talk to you about that deal. Later on, let's have the big culture convo where Florida attempts to rewrite history again, talking about those black folks who were enslaved gained personal skills. And that is what they're planning to teach in this upcoming school year to black students. Look, let's have that conversation. Folks, we've got a lot to talk about, so stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we have a lot to talk about. First and foremost, happy Friday. We have officially made it to the end of the week. It only seemed like it took about 6 or 7 days to get here. But we are here now, folks. So happy Friday. Big shout out to my online culture crew that's checking in. There we go. That's it. That's right. I see y'all, man. If y'all checking in, and we are streaming live on YouTube right now under Roland Martin's page. Okay, Deidre, I see you. I see you. Rochelle Kipcart, thank you so much for checking in. My man, Willie Fraser. There we go. Let's go. Pretty Brown Mimi 726. I see you. Moser Blick. Hey, fam. And Cindy D. So many of you are checking in. I would love to connect with you. Make sure y'all join us in the conversation, folks, on YouTube as we stream live on there. Of course, though, also we are streaming live on blackstarnetwork.com and Amazon News. Okay, folks, let's do this. Let's have the first part of this conversation, one of many. First and foremost, let's talk about the Democrats are attempting to rein in the scandals at the United States Supreme Court by creating an ethics bill of code of conduct for Supreme Court justices. Let me just say this before we get details into this story. Did you ever think that there would come a time, a day, where the highest court in the land would have to be monitored for not breaking the law? I'll wait. Remember back in the day when we used to talk about the Supreme Court, like this is the highest court. This is the court that understands it, that has integrity. It will force accountability and all of those things. There was so much respect, and even more importantly, there was a lot of trust that we were always taught and conditioned to have for the United States Supreme Court, that this was like the law of the land, right? This was like the vicegerent of God or something, you know what I mean? Like this was serious. And now we are living in a day and time, folks, where the Supreme Court justices have to be monitored because they themselves might be involved in some unseeming, unsettling type of business, some backdoor deals that will impose upon their ability to interpret the law properly. This is modern day America, folks. All right, let's talk about it. Yesterday, the Senate Judiciary Committee, they approved this bill out of the House that would impose what they call sweeping ethics standards on the Supreme Court justice. Let me share with you this piece from The Root as they talk about this. The bill, I'm looking at the second line here, folks, the bill, which would, quote unquote, adopt a code of conduct for the Supreme Court, among other measures, passed entirely along party lines in committee. And Republicans voiced heavy opposition to enforcing ethics standards on the Supreme Court. The lax ethical standards for Supreme Court justices have made it much more challenging to hold them accountable for actions that would be a clear ethical violation in any court. Who's going to judge the judge, who is going to make sure that justice is the order of the day for Supreme Court justices. All right, let me take a look at this, and I want to get your take on this, crew. Join us in the conversation as we are streaming live on YouTube under Roland Martin, and let me know your thoughts about what do you think about this. Now, they're already saying that the Republicans, they're already saying, folks, that the Republicans are going to be pushing back on it, which is understandable because the court is a highly more conservative court that has a supermajority of conservatives on the court. So that's understandable if you're talking about party lines and partisan politics. What is more disheartening is the fact that people will go along with the madness just because they are a part of the same party. That's the disappointing part about this, right? So this code of conduct, this ethics reform for the Supreme Court justices, this came down party lines. And it shouldn't, considering the fact that the Supreme Court, even though they might be Democrat or Republican or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, they're supposed to be the people standing up for right. Okay, all right. So that's the case. Well, we will have to see. So I want y'all to share with me your thoughts on this very quickly, crew, about this effort from the Democrats to try to bring some sense of civility to the court, to the Supreme Court. Do you think that this is going to happen soon? That's the question I'm posing right now. Do you think that this is going to happen soon? Davey floated, you checked it. You said, who gonna check me, boo? Right, who's gonna check the Supreme Court of the United States? But they do need to be checked. There needs to be a check and balance system for all of our institutions of government, especially the Supreme Court. And here's my take on this. I think that there needs to be a different conversation about how judges are appointed to the court, that it cannot be something that the president of the United States is just allowed to do. There should be maybe a committee, a bipartisan committee of folks who might say, okay, let's look at these judges, right? Because it becomes this chess game where if the president, if you have a Republican president, they're going to stack the courts with their people. If you have a Democratic president, then they're going to stack the courts with their people. And it becomes more about the partisanship and more about party politics, more so than about the law, the interpretation of the law, about, you see, it becomes bigger than justice. Yeah. And then we saw how the historic decisions, whether it's Roe v. Wade, whether it's the affirmative action decision, whether it's the student loan decision, whether it's the LGBTQ decision that just came out just a few weeks ago, all of these things start to fall along party lines. And at the end of the day, folks, the court should not be the place where politics reign supreme. Let me just say that again. The court should not be the place where politics reign supreme. Yes, everybody has their political affiliation, but it should not be a place that if a Republican or conservative case, a conservative issue comes before the court, that the conservatives will automatically rubber stamp that issue according to their agenda, and vice versa. It shouldn't be the same for Democrats. If the Supreme Court of the United States doesn't stand up for what's right, or they fall in the pit of partisanship, right? Then which institution of the American government actually stands for freedom, justice, and equality? I'll wait. Which institution? If the Supreme Court is not going to do that. If we know where the White House stands, we know where Congress stands, but if the court is not going to do that, which is it's one of the most important elements of our government, right? It dictates the agenda legally. Then what recourse do people who have been suffering under injustice, what recourse do they have if the courts, that one of the highest court in the land, doesn't seem to care, or is more involved in the backdoor dealings of partisan politics rather than the open front door dealings of justice? Okay, let me see something here. Let me see. Let's go to you, what you have to say. Robin, my sister, you checked it in. Good to hear from you, Robin Welch. You said they're human. They don't walk on water. Heck yes, they need to be checked. If we have to be checked at our jobs, so do they at their job. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think an ethics committee, Robin, is absolutely essential. I think having a code of conduct is absolutely essential. What I do see the problem is that this may not go anywhere because of Republicans. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's call it what it is, folks. It's Republicans blocking this type of situation. And this type of stoppage, this type of partisanship, man, I'm telling you, folks, if we don't get ourselves together in this country, get past all of this, Republican, Democrat, red, blue, conservative, liberal, all of this stuff, right? If we don't I'm telling you, the country is not going to go forward. And it's hard for me to wrap, and Robin, you might be in the same place that I'm feeling. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around how Republican lawmakers who see all of this stuff is happening and still don't even have something in their hearts, their minds, and their spirits to say, you know what, let's try to do something right. Let's do the right thing. Can't get past their own political bullshit. They can't. They gotta win. They gotta be empowered. They gotta dictate the agenda. And guess what, folks? The American people are suffering. America as a country with all of its systems and policies is suffering, will continue to suffer. It's sad, absolutely sad. Deidre, my sister, you checked in. Deidre Hall, you said, right, this is a far right Supreme Court, far right. And we have a serious, serious problem with ethics in with this court. Thank you, Deidre, for checking in. Conscious Thought, you said the law is subject to interpretation. Right now, it's being interpreted to the extreme of right-wing conservatism that have been skillfully positioned and placed into their lifetime position. Right, facts. I love that quote. I love that thought, Conscious Thought. Thank you so much for posting that. You're absolutely right, man. Absolutely right. And these are lifetime positions. You got to wait till somebody dies before progresses can be made on the United States Supreme Court. Let's just go to show you, folks, we still have a lot of evolution. There's still a lot of growth that needs to happen. There's room. The biggest room in the house is the room of improvement, of old saying goes, right? There's still a lot of improvement that needs to be made around this issue. So, of course, we will keep you posted as we see the efforts by the Democrats. But all I'm saying to the Republicans, and I don't care if you're a Republican, you tuned in, you know this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Given all the scandals, whether it's Clarence Thomas and his wife or some other issue, there needs to be checks and balances, even for the courts who is responsible for enforcing the law. There needs to be some checks and balances, folks. All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation on the other side. Let's talk about Magic Johnson is now officially a co-owner of the NFL's Washington Commanders and what that will mean for the NFL and, of course, for its fans. So stay with me. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. We got a lot of great conversations scheduled for you today. One of the big culture convos that I do want to have is with this situation down in Florida. Did you hear about this? We're not going to jump into it at this particular moment, but I'm just kind of getting you prepared for it. But did you hear that Florida is looking to rewrite history once again? And they are planning to have a curriculum about Black history. But one of the big things is that they want to teach it in a very ugly way, saying that those of us, our people, our ancestors who were enslaved, benefit, were able to gain personal skills while they were enslaved. That's just one component, one element of this crazy ass DeSantis administration and their take and view of Black history at the 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time hour. We're going to get into more details. I got my sister Corinna Denise checking in for that one. But we just wanted to put that up there. But in a few minutes, I know that we just got word that Vice President Kamala Harris, who has made some remarks just started yesterday, to talk about this issue. She's going to be kind of continuing to give some remarks around this issue today. So we will do our best to get connected to hear and allow to connect you so you can hear her as she shares her thoughts about the situation down in Florida. So stick around. That should be happening in the next few minutes. Crazy, crazy. Again, folks, just like I said with the Republicans and the SCOTUS situation, looking around, you got at some point, man, you got to look around and be like, you know what, maybe what I'm doing is not adding to, but it is actually taking from progress. It's pushing us back. But I get it, because the time that we're living in, this is the conflict for power. This is war. This is war. And on the battleground right now, you know, it's like the scriptures say, you know, that you're going to see wars in diverse places, right? And what we're seeing right now is just that. In a lot of spaces, people are at war with one another. People are engaged in conflict with one another over principles, philosophies, and ideas. That's the place that we're in. So, you know, it's important that each one of us, as we have these conversations on a public way and even privately, that we prepare ourselves, that we constantly, you know, read good information, listen to good guidance. We prepare ourselves for this battle. Ignorance is not bliss. I know that's what everybody say, ignorance is bliss. That came out of the matrix and all of that stuff. But it is not bliss in this day and time. Actually, ignorance will cause you to lose your life. First, your mental life, right? Your sense of reality, your sense of sanity. And then in some cases, it might cause you to lose your physical life because you are not aware of the time, and more importantly, the time and what must be done. So we just can't play with this moment right now. So we'll certainly do our best here. And of course, I got my great production team to keep me posted on when that situation is going to kick off with the vice president. All right, very quickly, folks. I did want to bring this to the forefront because I think it's important, as of course, this is the culture. We want to talk about these things. But the big thing that I did want to mention was the fact that Magic Johnson, of course, the NBA legend who had made the Lakers great, he's now officially a co-owner of the Washington Commanders. Take a look at this story from NBC News as they talked about this, that the NFL owners voted unanimously yesterday to approve the sale of the team to a group led by billionaire Josh Harris that includes Magic Johnson, the five-time NBA champion. The group is taking ownership of the Commanders from embattled owner Daniel Snyder for a record $6.05 billion. Woo! Now, Magic, formerly of the LA Lakers, will be the franchise's first Black co-owner. He said he is aware that the team's image needs an internal facelift. He said, quote, well, first of all, you have to let the employees know that you respect them and it will be a safe place to work. And we want you to have a winning attitude too. These owners just can't have a winning attitude. It's got to trickle down to the employees, and then it's got to trickle down to the coaches and trickle down to the players. So first and foremost, congratulations to Magic Johnson for being the first Black co-owner of an NFL team, right? We've been talking about this. We've been hearing a number of Black millionaires and billionaires who have been trying to break into the league. Everyone from Jay-Z to Diddy to other folks who said that they wanted to get involved in some level of ownership of an NFL team. That, of course, came out of what we saw with Colin Kaepernick and his protests, and how that was amplified by the fact that because the NFL was lacking in racial justice, that it caused the conversation to shift from police brutality to equity within the NFL. And of course, it also was emphasized as a result of Mr. Flores down in Florida, one of the Black coaches who talked about the issue of racism in the NFL. Something that the NFL has not done well in handling, has not done well in addressing. So this is a historic moment in the fact of Magic Johnson being in the position that he's in. But my question to us, crew, is first, how many of us are still protesting the NFL because of Colin Kaepernick and because of all of that has happened? And race is just one of the big issues facing the league. The other issue is the treatment of women, whether it's with staffing or other personnel. There has been a number of women who have levied allegations and lawsuits against the league for everything from sexual harassment to pay issues to lack of mobility within the league. So that is another big issue in itself. So I want to get your take on this as Magic Johnson is stepping into this position. Will this make a change? Will this help to now create the change that we see or that we want to see with the league? The league, of course, is still 70% Black in terms of the players, but there are not, that level of representation is not seen in the owner's box. So I want to get your take on that, crew. Let me know what your thoughts are as we talk about Magic Johnson making moves. McCole, you said it. He's Magic Johnson. It's making money moves. I'm cool with him making money moves, McCole, but I want him to make culture moves too. I want him, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying he won't. I'm just making sure that, like, yeah, that's all well and good, because those money moves really ain't affecting us. We're not getting no real benefit from those checks that's going to be, signed in cash. And I'm saying we as fans, we as consumers. We're just not benefiting from that. We can benefit from the cultural side of things, though. That's the move that I want to make. Because you can throw money at a situation, but if it doesn't change the culture, like Magic said in his quote, if people don't want to work for the team, if people don't feel like that the team is going to take them seriously, if players don't feel like they're going to be heard, if issues aren't going to be addressed, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. The change of the culture is what's going to be the big determinant of whether this is a success or not. So I'm happy for Magic. I know his checkbook is long, but more importantly, how does this impact the culture? Nicole, thank you so much. Lonnie checked in. Lonnie, you said, "Does Magic Johnson have $1 billion brand like Michael Jordan?" I don't think he does, but check it. But then again, let me tell y'all, I'm not pocket watching. I don't. That's not my job. I don't. You know what I mean? What I look for is, what do you spend your money on that you say is good for the culture? That's what. Once you start talking in that perspective, then that's when I start to take a look. What do you spend your money on? All right, Pretty Brown Mimi. Thank you, Lonnie, for posting that. Pretty Brown Mimi, you said, "I hope Magic starts a wealth building school because he has great success. Passing that on to our people." I hope so too. Shit, man, we need something. We need something. I hope he does. I hope it opens the door for us to have some very important conversations, not just about coaching and not even just about owner representation, just up and down. Like, you know, the NFL has been on this thing since Kaepernick of creating the Change Initiative, where they partnered with Jay-Z, talking about racial justice. Magic needs to be a part of those conversations, I believe, in a very, very significant, big way. You don't like my music. My guy, you checked in. You said the NFL has a long trail of victims. Long trail of victims? Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Ibusel, man, you said, "I remember when Magic Johnson announced that he had HIV, and I was sad and was hoping he would live long and prosper 30 odd years later." Oh my gosh, I remember that too, bro. I remember that. We were all like, damn, man, this must be. But he, you know, now that I have a greater understanding of HIV versus AIDS, you can live with HIV. You can live a long, healthy, prosperous life with HIV. Magic Johnson is like the prime person to speak to that. So yeah, but we all thought it was a death sentence at that time, right? We all thought it was a death sentence. But look at how far our brother has gone in terms of business and taking ownership. But again, if the culture, and Magic is he's a brilliant man. He's brilliant. We don't talk too much about him because he does a lot of things like, you know, but I'm telling you, that man is making moves in the business world like no other. But the culture has to catch up to the brilliance of Magic Johnson. Everything he touches seems to be successful, whether it's with coffee shops, movie theaters, any other business. Now he's in the NFL. He's that man. He's that guy. But again, going back to my thesis on this, if it doesn't change the culture, then what are we really talking about? Look, I'm gonna take a quick pause as we're going to keep our eyes on what the vice president, her press conference around this Florida situation. Folks, let's continue the conversation on the other side. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, crew, welcome back to the Culture on the Black Star Network. We are still keeping our eyes open as it's expected that Vice President Kamala Harris will be having a press conference speaking about the situation down in Florida and their revised effort to change Black history and the impact that it's making. The Vice President has gone on record to say, in some remarks that she made yesterday, that she is looking at these extremists and that this attempt to change history is an insult. Well, she's expected to give a press conference in the next few minutes, and we're going to certainly do our due diligence to try to tap into that press conference and then have the conversation. The big culture convo today is what's happening down in Florida and their attempt to rewrite history once again by adding their spin and narrative to something that should already be blatantly known, which is that Black people were enslaved, and as part of that enslavement period and experience, it wasn't a job that we signed up for where we gained quote unquote personal experience. The bullshit continues. So we're going to keep you posted on that. But some of you have already checked in and talked about the situation with Magic, as we announced that he is officially one of the new co-owners of the Washington Commanders, as he's a part of a group of folks who have decided to buy the team as a result of the embattled Washington Commanders owner Daniel Snyder. They have bought the team. Magic is the first Black co-owner of an NFL team in history. And now we're just talking about the impact that this is going to make on football and the culture at the same time. Let me go back to what y'all are saying, crew, because y'all got some great stuff going. And good to see y'all. See, we got some new crew, some of our crew members are joining us. My sister Lana is in the building. Who else we got? Who else am I seeing? Tiana, good to see you checking in. I love when the crew checks in. CJ, my man CJ, you said Magic Johnson owns Starbucks and theaters. In fact, one of his Magic Johnson theaters is down the street from FedEx Field, right there in DC, well, in Atlanta. So yeah, he's doing phenomenal things. Again, I love what Magic brings to the business world. I love that, right? But I don't want to put too much on him, right? Because his view of business and then the approach that we take on culture sometimes can be two different things. So I'm happy that he's in a position of making history. But the bigger question is, how will this change the culture? How will this change the conversation about race and how the NFL handles race? Because he's the first Black co-owner. Let me see something here. P. Jackson, you checked in. You said, glad to hear he still has some theaters. I wish he still had one in Los Angeles. So all of the theaters, I didn't know. You know what I mean? P. Jackson, talk to me. Let me know. He has no more theaters in LA? Not even the Crenshaw, the one next to Crenshaw Mall down there? You don't have no theaters in LA anymore? Man. And see, the thing is, here's the thing for us to keep in mind, crew. That just because somebody bought something doesn't mean that they're invested. Whew. Sometimes the thoughts just come to you. Just because they bought something doesn't mean that they're invested. Y'all want to know what I mean by that? It's the fact that is it just to buy something just to, you know, gain a profit? Or is it to buy something as part of a larger strategic plan to say, okay, we're gonna buy this, replace it with that, and change the culture here? I'm convinced, folks, that out of everything that we see in this country, whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about politics, whatever the industry you're talking about, the real currency that will trickle down to the people, that will affect the people, whether not just in our pockets and in our wallets and purses, but I'm saying the real currency is culture. That's the currency. That's the stuff that we, those of us, right, who take part in all of these systems and networks and everything, if there isn't a change in culture and it's just a change in ownership, that's still not enough. Y'all hear me on this one? It's still not enough. I don't care if the CEO changes from a white hand to a black hand. I care about the culture. What is going to be the quality of life for black folks, for brown folks, for poor folks? What's going to be the quality of life for those who have been disenfranchised and marginalized, and those who have oftentimes been put to the fringes of corporations and systems and power? Which that's what talking about. If it's just about a change in ownership, like this person bought this thing now, and now you have a new black face at the head, but the black face doesn't institute any real policy that's going to empower those who have been traditionally and historically pushed to the side, or have not had power to bring people to the table that you don't normally hear from, then what are we talking about? We just talking about a change of hands and at the top that doesn't affect none of us at the bottom. Y'all tell me if I'm thinking crazy on this. Cruz, just talk to me on that. Robin, you said that's real, Faraji. Facts. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's our currency. That's our currency. We're not walking around here with $6 billion in our pockets, right? Where's that money coming from? Us, fans, consumers, right? The people. But how do we get paid for our investment? I'm going to say that again. We buy into the idea, right? We are stakeholders. We are investors. But how do we get a return on our investment? It's through the culture. When you watch a game, nobody pays you to watch an NFL game. Nobody pays me to watch an NFL game, right? They pay the players, right? But then for us, when we watch the game, when we attend the game, when we participate and wear jerseys and doing other things that surround that, well, what is our return on our investment? You say, well, it's the feel-good experiences. I mean, that's true. But look at the pipeline of black boys in particular, the pipeline that we have created in the black community to get young black athletes from pee-wee to the pros. Now, the return on the investment are just the small number of black boys and their families who go from pee-wee and who actually make it to the pros, right? They get something, obviously. But from those of us who our sons didn't make the cut, or we didn't make the cut, or we just kind of spectators of the situation, what is the return on our investment? All right, keeping my eyes out here. G. Albert, you checked it and said Magic Johnson has been consistent. Trust him a lot more than I do with Elon Musk or Clarence Thomas. Oh no, he in a different, hell no, bro. G. Albert, I mean, there's no comparison. There's no comparison between him and those other two guys. So no, that's not the thing. But I'm tired of black faces, right? Still, you put a black face out there, but you're still taking care of, and I'm saying this for lack of a better word, white business. Black people out there, yeah, we could do this. Yeah, we got a black man in the C-suite. But if that black man don't bring some black business to the table, then what's the point? And I'm saying that not in from a history of racism and all that garbage. I'm not talking, that's very small. I'm talking about you got 70, 80% of the players in the NFL are black people, man. Black men who put their bodies on the line. They love the game, they get paid for it, but at the end of the day, they're still part of a community. They're still part of a group of people. They're still part of a nation of people. So what about their interests? Who's gonna protect those players after they get off the field? Because they don't get no special protections about that. Once you finish playing the game, and if you blow your money, right, you wake up every day and you got to take the meds. Who's gonna take care of you then? Cindy, you said I haven't watched the NFL since COVID hit in 2019. It was so hard for me to watch it when our black people were dying. Black men are still dying, and the way they did Colin Kaepernick. Facts. I know a lot of people haven't been watching. That's why I brought this piece up. Is this going to be the game-changing? Is this going to be the tipping point, the game-changing moment, the tipping point of having some new conversations? Again, we can't put this all on Magic Johnson, but he is the first black co-owner of a major NFL franchise. This ain't the CFL. This ain't some other small league. You and the big boys. So I think we should have some expectation. And he should be prepared to meet some of those expectations, especially since post-Kaepernick, post-Jay-Z and the Change Initiative, anytime a black man or woman gets into a position of power and influence within the league, they should be prepared to meet some expectations by the consumers, by the participants, by the people who support the NFL and make it the most profitable sports entertainment business in the world. You should be ready for it. We should not be like, oh man, this is good for the culture, a black man. No. We want it's good for the culture when we have some demands, because too many of us have been affected negatively by the league. And I'm gonna keep it real. I love football. I love watching football. But I don't love how the league treats black players. I don't love how the league handles race issues or women's issues. I don't love how the league tries to create a PR situation and put a little Band-Aid over a wound that needs some real doctor's attention. All right? So we will see how the situation plays out. Folks, I got to take another quick pause when we come forward. We're still keeping our eyes on what Vice President Kamala Harris has to say about Florida. Got my sister Corinna Denise, online culture crew member, and she is a college admissions official down in Florida, as well as an educator. And of course, I got you, my crew, to join us in the conversation, the big culture conversation about Florida and their attempt to rewrite history once again in the school system. Stay tuned. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Welcome to the second hour, folks. If you didn't miss the first hour, make sure you're a part of Team Replay to take a look at the conversations we had in that first hour. Now, it's time for our big culture conversation, which is about what's going on in Florida as the state of Florida is looking to rewrite history again, folks. This is the situation when the Florida State Board of Education has included some new standards and some controversial language about how to teach about the enslavement of African people. This is a huge, huge topic, so big that Vice President Kamala Harris decided to join the chorus of folks around this issue. In a moment, you see her right there. We're joined by my sister, Coretta Denise, one of our great culture crew members. She is an educator and advisor. Before we jump to the Vice President, Corinna, want to give you a chance to very quickly just kind of speak to the significance of this moment down in Florida once again. Oh, you got you on mute.
Sorry about that, y'all. Peace, crew. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, just real quickly, because I know VP is about to speak. I think she summed it up perfectly with her comments yesterday saying how insulting this is to all of us as far as it being beneficial to us. You know, the country definitely benefited from our sweat, our labor, our blood, our tears, and it is insulting. And I really hope this is an opportunity for people to really wake the hell up, especially here in Florida, that we need to do something because this is just the beginning. They're just getting started. And we can't afford for them to do any more damage than has already been done.
All right, yeah. There we go. There we go. So look, let's jump right now to the Vice President as she's checking in and having her take on the situation in Florida.
Some of the teachers earlier, my first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, God rest her soul, attended my law school graduation. I am a product of teachers and an educational system that believed in providing the children with the full expanse of information that allowed them to then and encouraged them to then reach their own conclusions and exercise critical thought in a way that was directly intended to nurture their leadership. I am fully aware that it is because of that approach that I stand before you as Vice President of the United States of America. So when I think about where we are today and who we are as a community of people, within the beauty of the diversity that I see in front of me, I know that there are many things we share in common. And first and foremost, we share in common a deep love of our country and the responsibility we each have then to fight for its ideals. That is so critically important on the subject then that gathers us here today. Because you see, when we think about it, part of true patriotism means fighting for a nation that will be better for each generation to come. Right? Believing that our nation is worth the investment in fighting for the children of America, that we will provide them with the information they need to go into the world and lead. I will tell you, as Vice President of the United States, I have now met with over 100 world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. One of the things about who we are as Americans is we can walk in those rooms with the authority earned, for the most part, except recently sometimes, earned authority to walk in those rooms talking about what it means to uphold democracies, the importance of rule of law, human rights. And when we walk in those rooms, we do it proud of the fact that we have been held up and held out as a role model. Well, the thing about being a role model is this. When you're a role model, people watch what you do to see if it matches what you say. So understand the impact that this is having not only for the children of Florida and our nation, but potentially people around the world. Because on a more specific point in that regard, we want to know that we are sending our children out as role models of a democracy who therefore know the importance of speaking and telling truth, the importance of understanding when you are a leader, you must know history. And by the way, be really clear. Be really clear. All the folks that we would go out and send our children to go and meet around the world are clear about our history. And we're going to send our own children out to not know what it is? Building in a handicap for our children that they're going to be the ones in the room who don't know their own history when the rest of the world does? Think about this for a moment. The levels of proportion. So when I think about where we are, I do believe that our strength as a nation has always been because we are continuously and always invested in fighting to reach our ideals. And let's remember the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. Bancroft. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, is part of the spirit behind our founding as a democracy. Implicit in those words is we understood we must strive to form a more perfect union. Implicit in those words was an understanding we are imperfect. And we must be honest about that to understand then our history, where we've been, and then have a North Star in terms of where we must go. So when I think about what is happening then here in Florida, I am deeply concerned. Because let's be clear, I do believe this is not only about the state of Florida. There is a national agenda afoot. And what is happening here in Florida? Extremists, so-called leaders, for months have dared to ban books. Book bans in this year of our Lord 2023. Extremists here in Florida pass a law, don't say gay, trying to instill fear in our teachers that they should not live their full life and love who they love. And now, on top of all of that, they want to replace history with lies. Middle school students in Florida to be told that enslaved people benefited from slavery. High schoolers may be taught that victims of violence, of massacres, were also perpetrators. I said it yesterday. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not have it. And we will not have it. And you know, as parents, we teach our children to tell the truth. It's one of the first things we teach our children. Love and honor their parents, their God, and tell the truth. We teach our children not only to tell the truth, but to seek knowledge and truth. It's part of what we know is about putting them on the road for them to grow and develop for the sake of our mutual well-being and prosperity. These are the things we tell them. Well, I think we should model what we say. These extremist so-called leaders should model what we know to be the correct and right approach if we really are invested in the well-being of our children. Instead, they dare to push propaganda to our children. This is the United States of America. We're not supposed to do that. And here's the other piece about this. Now, when adults know what slavery really involved, come on. Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved rape. It involved torture. It involved taking a baby from their mother. It involved some of the worst examples of depriving people of humanity in our world. It involves subjecting to people the requirement that they would think of themselves and be thought of as less than human. So in the context of that, how is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization? In the midst of these atrocities, that there was some benefit. So it is not only misleading, It is false, and it is pushing propaganda. People who walk around and want to be praised as leaders, who want to be talked about as American leaders, pushing propaganda on our children. Pushing propaganda on our children. And when we think about it, you know, when we send our children to school as parents, we want to know that they are being taught the truth. It is a reasonable expectation. It is a reasonable expectation that our children will not be misled. And that's what's so outrageous about what is happening right now. An abject and purposeful and intentional policy to mislead our children. And so let us be clear, teachers want to teach the truth. Teachers want to teach facts. And teachers dedicate themselves to some of the most noble work any human being could take on, to teach other people's children for the sake of the future of our nation. And so they should not then be told by politicians that they should be teaching revisionist history in order to keep their jobs. What is going on? Are teachers who fear that if they teach the truth, they may lose their job? As it is, we don't pay them enough. I know. And these are the people, these extremist so-called leaders, who all the while are also the ones suggesting that teachers strap on a gun in the classroom instead of what real leaders should be doing and be engaged in reasonable gun safety laws. These are the same extremist leaders, so-called leaders, who make teachers fear losing their job for having a photograph of their spouse on their desk. But let's be clear. On this issue, this is not the first time in history that we've come across this kind of approach. This is not the first time that there are powerful forces that have attempted to distort history for the sake of political ends. Think about in the past how we have seen attempts to minimize and even deny the Holocaust. Think about those who tried to rewrite the history of the Japanese internment camps, erase our nation's dark and sordid history and how we have treated the Native people, and in particular through educational systems. Those who have tried, and there are states where they have to ban teaching Latino and Hispanic history. This is not the first time. But when we think about it then in the context in which we should, understanding there is a national agenda afoot, understanding that there are many aspects of our history that some would like to overlook, erase, or at least deny, let us think about then what this creates as a moment for us to also then rededicate ourselves to the coalition. Our responsibility at moments like this to understand nobody should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. And take a look, because you know there are a lot of teachers here. I think so. I'm going to tell you, one of the things I love is Venn diagrams. Any math teachers in the room? I love Venn diagrams. And I have done an exercise of looking to see from where are we seeing the attacks on things like voting rights, LGBTQ rights, a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, book bans. And you will not be surprised to know a lot of them revert to the same source. So let's think about this then as an opportunity to build back up the coalition of all people who believe in our foundational and fundamental truths. The truth that we are and will be a more perfect union when we fight for justice, when we fight for equality, when we fight for fairness, guided by a belief in who we are as a nation and telling our truths. And I'll close with this. History has shown us that in our darkest moments, we have the ability to unite and to come out stronger. We know e pluribus unum, out of many one. That is who we are in this room, out of many one. Americans who came here through Ellis Island, Americans who were kidnapped and brought over on slave ships, Americans who are native to this land. Our history as a nation is born out of tragedy and triumph. That's who we are. Part of that is what gives us our grit. Knowing from where we came, knowing the struggles that we have come through, and being stronger in our dedication to saying no more and not again. It is part of what makes up the character of who we are as America. So let's reject the notion that we would deny all of this in terms of our history. Let us not be seduced into believing that somehow we will be better if we forget. We will be better if we remember. We will be stronger if we remember. We fought a war to end the sin of slavery, a civil war. People died by the untold numbers in that war, many of whom fought and died because of their belief that slavery was a sin against man, that it was inhumane, that it was not reflective of who we believe ourselves to be as a country, and certainly not reflective of who we aspire to be. So who then would dare deny this history? Who would dare then deny that these lives were lost and why they were lost and what was the cause that they were fighting for and what were they fighting against? They weren't fighting and dying because they thought people were going to be okay with this thing. It's because they knew that it had to end because it was so criminal. So we know the history, and let us not let these politicians who are trying to divide our country win. Because you see, what they are doing is they are creating these unnecessary debates. This is unnecessary to debate whether enslaved people benefited from slavery. Are you kidding me? Are we supposed to debate that? Let us not be distracted by what they're trying to do, which is to create unnecessary debates to divide our country. Let's not fall in that trap. We will stand united as a country. We know our collective history. It is our shared history. We are all in this together. We know that we rise or fall together as a nation. And we will not allow them to suggest anything other than what we know. The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And so let us stand always for what we know is right. Let us fight for what is right. And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
All right, folks, that was Vice President Kamala Harris giving her take on the conversation that's happening in Florida. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, Corinna, you ready to jump in?
I'm ready. Already.
I got some thoughts. You can say that. I got some thoughts about this. So, folks, stay with us. You're tuned into the Big Culture Convo here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad, having our Big Culture Convo we just played for you in its entirety Vice President Kamala Harris' response to the Florida Department of Education looking to rewrite history, and more importantly, to teach that enslaved people, our people, Black people, Africans, gained some personal skills from the experience of being chattel slaves. That's just one of the many things that the Vice President spoke on today from Florida. And I got my sister, Corinna Denise, who is an educator. She's a college admissions official and a culture crew member. Corinna, what do you make of what the Vice President had to say?
I mean, I think she laid it out, Faraji. I was chatting with some of the crew while she was speaking, and I basically said, VP is laying it out, and POTUS, okay, Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, I think a lot of us forget about him sometimes. They need to follow suit as well. And I want to see more of this VP. I think she's always pissed off, maybe more so privately behind the scenes. But she was very much pissed off today, yesterday. We need to see that all the time. Because here's another thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people really get pulled in by like the rhetoric, right? And a lot of times words matter, emotions. Hell, we need Democrats take the cue because Republicans play on people's emotions. And all the time where you're going from like an intellectual point of view or, in a smart perspective, like not breaking it down and making it digestible for people to understand, they kind of miss the point. So we need to see emotion. We need to see that you're pissed off about this. And this is a very serious matter. It is insulting to us, right? How the hell do we benefit from slavery? Let's be very clear who benefited. Was this country that Dr. Carr refers to as a criminal enterprise most of the time, and it is. We were kidnapped, we were stolen people, brought over here, then sold, separated from our families. She talked about all the devastation and destruction and brutality. Add to that, Faraji, for an additional 50 years after the transatlantic slave trade was supposed to be done and ended, the United States continued on with slavery for an additional 50 years after it was supposed to be done. So no, this is insulting, and I hope people are taking note, but I do want to add one more thing too. While we are in this fight, I think it is imperative for us to remember that learning does not just occur in a classroom or a school building. We have to take the mantle, and this should always be the case, whether we were having this battle right now or not, but we need to be teaching our children our history. What does that look like? The kitchen table after school that day. You're having a conversation, weekends, right? Community organizations, church. We need to be teaching our history in the meantime because we have to fill in the gap while we're fighting this fight. And add to that too, benefits of slavery. They want to ban the books, right? But they don't want to ban guns. That's never a conversation. But yeah, I really think she laid it out really well. And like I said, it's important for it to stick that Joe Biden, our president, and Chuck Schumer, majority leader of the Senate, they need to follow suit as well. We need to recognize everyone who is accountable and making sure that this issue is given the appropriate attention that it deserves and that it needs, because it must. Yeah.
I think her attempt was felt to the degree, but I think the speech was tepid. I felt like the speech was tepid. I did not feel a Black woman talking about Black history the way that we should expect a Black woman to talk about Black history. I think that normally I would not be upset with the use of certain terms, but I think this is an appropriate time for her to say Black people. I think this is an appropriate time for her to say Africans. I think this is an appropriate time for her to say my people, to help make the connection that she came from a long line of people who, even though we may have started as property, she stands as the vice president of the United States, the same country that enslaved her people over 400 plus years ago. I just didn't feel that connection from the vice president. That's why I'm a little bit like, she missed an opportunity to extol her blackness. Now, normally it wouldn't matter, but in a case like this, it's okay for her to go personal, because if those terms aren't included, if we simply just say, she said Americans were brought to the shores through Americans who were brought here through slave ships, Americans or black people. You see what I'm saying? And helping to identify that identity, to me, is super important, Corinna, just because the identity, it's black children who are going to be affected the most by this, not just people. You got to drive that point home, black people. So that's the first problem that's the first issue. I think the second issue is something that I often see coming from Democrats, is trying to appeal to the moral sensibility of a situation, or to a people who is not playing from the same playbook as you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's fine that you want to appeal to the higher ideal of what education should be, right? But don't you think that people in the Florida Department of Education, the DeSantis administration, they don't give a damn about that? I mean,
you know what? You brought up a good point that I didn't even consider, because I was listening, but we all hear things at different times, right? But I do think you make a point about, in this specific instance, that this would have been the best time, the appropriate time to really go there, right? And hone in on Black people, African American, African descent.
I mean, talk about that struggle. Connect the dots for our people to show. I mean, she's the first Black vice president, right? And you make that connection, Madam Vice President, and say, look, I would not be here if it wasn't for Black people, my people, for bringing us this further along. If you don't teach about my people then who's going to teach about the present now? That's what's at stake. You know what I'm saying? Drive it home, because we don't, in America today, our culture doesn't respect history. We don't give a damn about no history in 2023, because our people, and I'm saying the American people, Black, white, Asian, Latino, we have been conditioned to not look to the past. The only thing we've been taught is to think about is the present moment. Because once you start looking at the past, then you will force you to ask the question, well, where do I fit in accordance to the past that I come from? It's going to force us to be critical in our thinking about who we are right now. So it's always, I think, the intent of the enemy of our people, to keep us not thinking about the past. That's why it's easy. And then when we do think about the past is always looking to a dead person that can't do nothing to change our present and don't have no impact on our future.
I'd like to quickly raise something, though, to your point. What do you think the residual effects would be if she did do that, right? Actually make that direct personal connection. Do you think that would motivate our people as a voting bloc to kind of build up a coalition?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell
so
yeah. I mean,
what
I think
we'll do now is, to your point, right? Because like I said, you got me thinking now from when I initially listened, and I'm thinking now. So she is our vice president, right? And I think sometimes, rather than us just going straight to the, well, you should have did this and pointing the finger, at the end of the day, we all need each other, because we need to win, or our ass is going to be grass. So how can we, constructively get in touch with her to be like, VP, okay, like, this is what's really going to drive the point home, right? This is what we need from you. I think we need to be forward thinking in that sense too, for solutions to yield the results that we want. But I do think you make a very good point. And now that I'm really sitting and thinking about it, this is a moment. But you know what? I don't think it's going to stop here. I hope they'll continue to think about it. So the next time, I think we have to be the responsible citizens, right? Voting coalition to push that point. Like, VP, we heard you, but we need you to take it a step further.
And that's what I'm saying, because this is too critical. You as an educator know this probably better than any one of us, right? When you're in that classroom, you're not teaching the same thing that the vice president and the president and those who are on this part of the conversation, the same thing that we blame the Republicans for in terms of the propaganda can be the same thing that we could be blamed for by not calling it is what it is. It's racism. Calling it saying black people. You see what I'm saying? So if you want to say, okay, they're teaching propaganda to the children, okay, that's true. But you can't just say the American people, because when we were enslaved, we weren't considered to be American.
I mean, and if you really study history, to be honest, I take that as a grain of salt. I understand why she has to make the address as such, right? But I mean, American in many terms, I'm just going to go ahead and say it usually means white, Faraji, like white Americans. We're not usually included in that. But I do understand her position as our vice president, why she has to address us in that entirety, right? Of when defining the American people. So I think it's important that we have to be very clear. And while to your point, and I hear you, and I do think it was an appropriate time for her to really go there, but I really hope that we don't get so caught up in the rhetoric that we focus on the mission, right? On the agenda. But yeah, I think this is where we have to be smart now. We got to push our elected officials, right? Like, yeah, like, look, you can go there, VP, because we got your back, right? There won't be a loss taken. So I think we need to be more proactive in doing that. But yeah, this is a situation, I'll tell you, like some of my teacher friends who I keep in touch with, I haven't been in the classroom for about 4 years now. And I haven't been in Florida classrooms for pretty much maybe almost 8 years now, but I definitely wouldn't want to be there. It has been hell. Okay. It's not a very hostile environment. Things are constantly changing. I could even imagine too with the kids and, what structures are they going to be putting in place to make sure that teachers are actually implementing this curriculum. But this is a step too far. But again, like I said, to my point, we need to make sure, what are we doing in the meantime too? Yes, this is horrible. We need to fight like hell. But at the same time, we can't just let it fall to the wayside. Our kids still need to learn. And you know what? You're not getting it in school right now, but you're going to get it from church and Sunday school. You're going to get it on the weekend when you go to that program. You're going to get it when we have conversations around the dinner table at night.
That's right.
We need to remember that. It's so important because we don't want to get so caught up in the battle that we're losing sight of the kids and what they're not learning. And we got to definitely derail all this misinformation, all this propaganda, all this bullshit about, slavery was beneficial to us. Are you kidding me? No, it was beneficial to you all. Let's be very clear, because we built the country with our blood, our sweat, our labor, our tears. Okay. And if we were to leave, even though y'all always telling us to go back to Africa, everything would fall apart. Let's be clear about that.
Absolutely. Monkey Confessions, you say saying black is important. It's super important. It is super important. I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about black history. We're talking about, we got to drive home the point that if you don't teach black children black history, then they're going to essentially fail. They're not going to have any rootedness to them. So I think saying black history is fine, and I know this is the same thing with President Barack Obama. He could not get to, it was a big thing for him to even say black and talking about even things like the killing of Trayvon Martin and the killing of black people by police. It's like this very safe rhetoric that Democrats tend to take. And I'm saying that if Republicans can come out and say all manner of disrespect, jokers saying colored on the Congress floor, and if Republicans can say that, like, come on, I get it.
That's a great point. Now that I think about it, that is an excellent point. If they're just being so blatantly,
they could be disrespectful, and then we're trying to go high. And I get it. This is no shade to matter to our beloved First Lady Michelle Obama. But I mean, sometimes you just be like, you going high, or you want to get low? We can get low. We can go flow rider low. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you make a great point. And you make a great point, because I feel like so much is going on that easily you can like forget in the moment, right? But I think to your point, they're spewing all that mess. It's time for us to, and what it's not mess we're spewing, it's just facts, right? So I think, yeah.
But when she did like say racism, like at the end of the day, this is racist. This is institutionalized racism, right? But you don't want to. Of course, the vice president of the United States can't call a governor a racist,
right?
Because that has its political implications. But at the end of the day, that's what this is. This is a form of racism, a systemic and institutionalized racism, and it's important that we call a spade, because if they have the balls to do this in 2023, then that means that all bets are off for them. In a time where we're supposed to be the most post-racial, most diverse, we have more conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion now than we've had before in the last 25, 30 years. We've had a Black president serve two terms. We've had all of this stuff, and we still can't say Black in some spaces. We still can't say, we still can't have a very realistic, fundamental talk about race in this country. And we got to stop whitewashing the whole thing. Yes, okay, fine. You want to include us in the larger category of being American, but we also suffer. And I'm saying Black children suffer because Black has a tendency, the term Black seems to be a stigma rather than a tool of empowerment. And if the vice president says, hey, these are my people, we know, I bet you in the audience that she was speaking to, probably 90% of the audience members were Black. But because we've been yearning to be called American for so long, that's the part about it. We want to be American so bad at the expense of our own sanity, identity, and at the expense of our own healing. We want to be American so bad that we're willing to forego even being called who we are, because we are finally being accepted in a category that doesn't give us the full rights and the full understanding and the full respect that we deserve as human beings. I'm a Black man that lives in America. I can be called American because this is from where I'm from, but at the end of the day, Americans ain't getting busted up in the head by police. We can go down a litany of things. It is Black people in this country. You got to say it. And it's a damn shame that people, especially our political leaders, cannot even acknowledge that, can't say Black people are suffering in this country. Because the moment you say that, then people gonna call you a racist. Man, F that. Black people are suffering. That's an absolute truth.
And I feel like that only happens with us, right? If it's
it only happens with us. You can say Japanese, you can say LGBTQ, you can say Jew, you can say everything else. But the moment you start to say my people as a Black person in power, and you show that you are connected to a group of people, you're connected to a struggle, then you become a problem. I got to take a quick pause. Stay with us, folks. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Got my sister, Corinna Denise, talking about Florida. Man, oh man, Corinna, let me just say this. Florida is a hotbed, and we just, of course, played it in its entirety. And folks, I'm highly encouraging you to send a copy of this show because a lot of people may not even see, Corinna, what the vice president had to say. And I think that even though I might have my issues with her presentation, the point remains that this is a serious, serious problem. I think it was said in the chat, I think you mentioned it in the chat, Corinna, that Florida is like ground zero in a lot of cases around this conversation about Black history and everything. And some people would go as far as to say that DeSantis is a very extreme case of what we're seeing, right? And try to write him off. But Florida is one of the most profitable states in the country as well. Yeah. It brings in a lot of money. A lot of our people are living in Florida.
Yes.
A lot of Black people live in Florida.
And that's something I always want to stress, because I know we've spoken a lot about boycott, and I'm not saying not to do that, but I'm saying we have to be smart about it, that we have to remember, and especially these southern parts of the country, our people are here. We have to have a plan for them too. Like, what's going to happen if we take on this feat? Like, how are they going to be secure in the meantime? And, I think sometimes people miss that very fact and don't think, they come up with these nuanced solutions, even from some of our organizations, and they're not considering the people who are here on the ground experiencing the damage of this in real time. And that's so important for Raji. Like, our people are here. And yes, to your point, something else too with Florida, a lot of folks moved down, especially from up north during the pandemic. They can't afford to retire anymore. Rent is astronomical. Okay, we are the most expensive state to live in the country. A lot of things are changing. I know folks who have had to move from their homes, maybe sell their home, maybe go live with someone else. It's crazy down here right now. We are being affected in every kind of way. The insurance rates are ridiculous. They're making the excuse of Hurricane Ian, raising up the rates. It is crazy. And so we have to keep in mind too, that our people are here. So what are we going to do to support folks in the meantime in Florida, in Texas, in Georgia, where all this craziness, right? This blatant racist coordinated activity that's happening across this nation. And if it's not there yet, it's coming to a city near you. And I don't know how it looks right now with the Satan, but who's to say, like, everyone has a similar agenda in the GOP. It's just a matter of who's going to get to wield that power accordingly. And we need to be vigilant.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Oh,
no doubt. Let me just share very quickly, Corinna. Let's talk a little bit of what the crew is talking about. Folks are checking in, and I appreciate all of you as the chat is going on fire right now. And even our very sister, your sister from Florida, Suzette Speaks. Our beloved sister from Florida, the attorney, the great attorney, the TV host from the Suzette Speaks show. She's joined the chat as well. So I'm so happy that she's able to connect with us today. But Tiffany Williams, you said we must find something else to call ourselves determined fully by us. That may be so. If we're talking about the terminology, the language of Black, that's certainly fine, Tiffany. We can have that conversation, but at the end of as of right now, when you say Black people, there's an understanding of who you're talking about. Now, once you get into some other terms, and it becomes a little bit more challenging. But I don't try. I've been a part of those conversations, and sometimes those discussions can become so circular that you lose sense of what the point is. So, that would be my response to that thought, Tiffany. But I appreciate you for posting that. Sharon Gregory, that's one thing I'll say about Dr. West. If he becomes president, he's going to say Black and lay it down. You got to say it. I heard Dr. West at the 10th anniversary celebration of Black Lives Matter here in Los Angeles this past last weekend. And he talked about love, but he talked about Blackness too. And I think that in this day and time, and this is something going back to the point you made, Corinna, like, somebody's got to tell the Madam Vice President, like, it's okay. And part of me tends to believe, and I read an article months ago, that a lot of what we see coming from the Vice President is dictated by actually staff members for the president. And the article is making a point that she's oftentimes in the room when certain decisions are made, when language is used, and they have what's the word, control over how she presents the information. And there's always some little bit of headbutting from her and the staff of the president, because they want to try to make sure that she's seen a certain way and then that Biden is seen a certain way. But look, how big of a moment was it for President Biden to talk about Black people being harassed and killed by police during that State of the Union, the last State of the Union he gave? Y'all remember that moment when he explicitly talked about the talk? And do you remember the next day, Corinna, how Black folks felt seen?
Yeah, I was that.
We felt seen. Like, we talked about it on the show. You felt a sense of like, oh, this president sees me. So it's crazy that the president can say that, but then you get to the first Black vice woman president, and it becomes this ambiguous. And again, whether you sign up for that term or not, but it still becomes this other thing, this otherness that the first Black vice president can't speak to. And I think that's
something else too.
That's a sad state.
I hear you, but I think too, we have to remember that there are other things that align for us to get legislation. And let's be very clear now, a microscope has been on Vice President Kamala Harris since the very get-go. You know, when are we going to start holding other folks accountable? Because even if she says Black, 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 right? We need to have a damn Senate and a damn House that's going to align with that to get us the legislation that we need. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think a lot of times that is flying out of the radar. That's why I mentioned Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, because we could have our Black VP and she could say Black and we could feel good in the moment.
Right.
Are they saying it too? Are they actually making moves for Black?
Oh, no. And Corinna, I think you and I are on the same page with this wholeheartedly. I don't want window dressing.
Yeah.
Politics, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you say Black, 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 and then behind it, then as soon as you finish the speech, it's still business as usual. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are past that right now in the culture right now. We don't need any more superficial window dressing style type of rhetoric in politics at this point. Like, I don't care if you don't say Black, but I'm talking about if the policies reflect Black interests, then you got my vote, you got my attention. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people are caught up on the superficial, and I'm not, and this is not that moment. That's not the point I'm making. Saying Black in a moment like this, where Black history is being taught, and you got the first Black vice president out there on the forefront giving remarks and making this a big deal, say Black.
Yeah, but to your point, cool. I gotta be honest though. In this instance, I think you're right, Faraji, especially where they're saying that, basically it's law that middle schoolers here in Florida will be taught that slavery was beneficial to people who look like them. So to your point, if I'm an elected official, I'm offended, because these are my people. So yes, I do hear you. And I do recognize that in that moment, I think that was a moment where she could have made it, very personal and there wouldn't be any pushback. But you know what? I'm wondering if it's just so routine that we have to walk on eggshells that's why this moment happened.
Now, why you first saying, what's damn is at the end of the show, you're going to open up another conversation. Come on, Corinna. I ain't bringing you. Can't come on Fridays and do that.
Well,
you can't do that. Hey, look, we got to jump off, but you are absolutely, that may be another conversation that Black politicians are still locked in, that they still don't have the freedom to speak the way they want to speak. And somewhere along the line, we do have to break them from the chains of their language prison. You know what I'm saying? But you make an excellent point. Corinna Denise, it's always a pleasure. Love having you on Fridays to help us give us some. Look at what Keenan doing. Keenan, wow, man.
Blackity black.
Yes,
put a melanin.
Just like the great Paul Mooney, the great black comedian Paul Mooney used to say the N-word. Well, we're not gonna say the N-word, but you can at least say blackity black, black, black. You know what I'm saying? Corinne and Denise, thank you so much for joining us here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Look, we got to keep the conversation going. Make sure you join us in the discussion. Of course, Roland Martin on RMU is going to continue the discussion about what's happening in Florida. They're going to take it even a step further. But folks, I thank each and every one of you. I thank my fantastic production team, Joel, Shannon, my man King Keenan, for making me look and sound great. And of course, I thank each one of you crew for joining us in the conversation. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure you support us here at Black Star Network with your financial donations and followership, and let people know that this is a platform to have those relevant Black conversations like nowhere else. So continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Follow me on all social media. And of course, and remember this, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.